So real briefly, I'm going to talk about the things that I would focus on, the 5 top things that I would focus on if I was just self-teaching graphic design. So I should preface this with I didn't self-teach graphic design. I learned from some amazing professors at MCTC. And but I also had to kind of go out and learn some of this myself because I'm terrible at school. All right. So I wrote this a while ago, not long after I did college. And there are just some overarching things. So this is more about the overarching principles, and then there are courses on this blog post. So I'll put a link in Slack and beneath the video on social here. So basically, I like mini curriculums. Like I really like. I've done this for a long time. Basically, come up with, I am going to learn this thing for 3 months. I'm going to do a little push. So I think it's really good to even, we do courses internally and stuff like that, but also to kind of maybe even cluster some courses. And because one course is never that, they're fine. These courses are fine. We've tried to find the best ones, but it's always like they kind of give you one piece of the puzzle. And so it's almost better to do like 2 or 3 on the same topic to really kind of find the nuances and stuff like that. So anyways, you want to have objectives first. What do you want it to do for you? That kind of thing. Break it into smaller chunks. Graphic design is a huge and overwhelming field. It's really about the principles of design, though. I think if you're trying to learn graphic design, you could get in and you could, sit there on Illustrator or Photoshop or InDesign. So InDesign is for print. Photoshop is a little bit more for photos, and some people use it for web design. And then Illustrator is more for like logos and shapes and stuff like that. I use that for web design personally. And then there's a couple other ones like Sketch and stuff like that that are more layout focused. But yeah, so there's a lot of creative exercises you can do. And I do think it comes down to experimentations. There's creative exercises that you can do. I strongly suggest applying things as you're learning them. And I also think creating visual design for a hypothetical client is really a great way to do it. I talk about the principles of design here. So let's just watch this real quick as a visual here. Balance. So when you have too many things on one side an example on this website is this logo is over here, and we're also balancing out with a button over here, right? They're two kind of heavy things, and they're both you want them to be. And then another one is alignment. So we've got, often when we're working in a grid in web design, and I'm sure in print design they do the same thing. But alignment means we want certain things to line up. We want the title, the outer piece of this title to line up to the edges of these things. We want things to line up, right? And you can have more than one piece of grid, right? Like you can see there's a alignment here, an alignment here, but there's also alignment on this title and on the body of this blog post. But alignment is one of those things where a decent graphic designer will kind of get stuff basically aligned, but then a really good, like this sometimes when sometimes when I'll do a design and I'll get it in front of Zach, who I would say is our best designer, is he'll just be like, all right, just make sure that alignment is good or something like that, where if you align stuff, it looks so much higher end. It's crazy. So those final details, if you're, let's say, doing some stuff in Canva, like Bia's going to show you here, those last little details of aligning stuff really make something look nicer. The next one here they have is emphasis. We do that in a lot of ways with size, like they're showing here, but also with color, like we do on our conversion rate optimization where we add a button up here. That's emphasis, right? That we're emphasizing that. And let's see if there's some other examples here of emphasis. We always, on the end of interior pages, we always have some emphasis. We're emphasizing this with movement, right? With Tracy moving and pointing at this thing. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to provide emphasis. We're underlining and turning a different color for links. That's emphasis. scaling. I think that I'm going to skip that one. I don't have a good example of that right off the top of my head. But these are the classical like things that you learn in graphic design school, right? Movement. We were talking about that GIF of Tracy. So using movement is a powerful way to grab people's attention. Pattern. We use that on our gift box, right? On the inside of the box cover. It essentially, like if you think about Gucci and Louis Vuitton, they use pattern in a way that feels makes the thing feel custom. What else we got? Contrast. That's probably one of the biggest ones that I see that really affects design. And this is a problem. Like with a lot of websites these days, they will have a background image, but there won't be enough contrast on an image to show the text in the front. You know what I'm saying? So like there's really bad design out there. So contrast, you need between the foreground and the background, you need to have so between the foreground and the background, you need to have either like a dark overlay or a light overlay if you're going to take text and put it onto an image. And then it's also like I would say you want there to be the text to be pretty dark if you have a white overlay over an image, right? And then you want the text to be pretty dark if you have or pretty light if you want to have a dark overlay. And then I would say also in some places, lack of contrast is a good thing, right? Like somebody I think Clay Oglesby on LinkedIn was talking about how you don't want text to be pure black on white and pure white on black because it's almost too much of a contrast. Like it's actually like a little tiring on the eyes. So that's why I think Zach does this a lot, where he'll do a light, kind of a little bit of a lighter gray. It's not super light, but like a lighter gray text. It looks higher end too. And a couple last things here that are kind of hacks that I found that were really nice. Like earlier on, like if you are putting text onto a page, the line height between the lines of text, if you make them a little bit bigger, it gives a little bit more readability. And then also taking text and not making it the width of the screen, but bringing it down to like 60% is another way to really make it feel easier to read. I think ease of readability, this kind of bleeds into the user experience, UX side of things, but making text super easy to read is powerful. And I don't know if you guys, I'm pretty sure you probably noticed how on our website, the main pages themselves have a sans serif. That meaning this is a sans serif without the little like dongly things on the edges, right? Sans serif. But then when you go into the blog posts, it's serif font. And that's all very, very intentional, meaning for longer reading, these serif fonts are easier to read. So there's kind of this benefit to doing that on the actual blog posts themselves. And I think that kind of knowing when to use serifs and when to use sans serifs is good. Like just longer reading, maybe serifs, consider that as an option. And then for shorter lines and stuff like that, headlines and maybe like little paragraphs, maybe we use more sans serifs, just because it's not, they do look modern in certain ways that I like, and kind of like promotional copy. And I think another kind of big principle that's kind of a hack to being better designer quickly is simplicity of fonts. It's very hard to make really loud fonts look high end. I'm not like the best designers do it. So it's not like a hard and fast rule. It's just a hack is to make them somewhat simple, to use somewhat simple fonts, but also to have contrast between like the headline font and the text font. So having a bold headline and having a lighter body copy font, those types of things are extremely useful. You have to experiment a lot and get feedback from other people. It makes your stuff better. You have to go through a beginner period. So if you want to mess with this, don't feel like it doesn't make you an expert to ask for somebody else that you respect's design opinion and then make changes based on that. I always think that you should try to have a revision for almost every piece of design you ever do. So a revision is healthy. And your taste will start to match up more with your execution will start to match up more with your taste, because a lot of you guys have good taste, but the execution isn't there yet. So you kind of gotta get feedback and change.